The auction hall was darker than Jaren expected. Alien banners hung from the walls, glowing with strange symbols that pulsed faint blue in the shadows. The smell of oil, dust, and strange spices filled the air as merchants, warlords, and collectors pressed into their seats. Everyone was waiting for the promised object that the auctioneer had been hyping for weeks. They had whispered of ancient tech, a relic from a lost empire, maybe even a weapon of mass power. Jaren had come only out of curiosity. A drifter, a scavenger, and sometimes a smuggler. He had dealt with odd things before, but this felt different. He leaned back in his chair, his coat dusty from long travel, pretending he belonged in the same room as rich lords and alien mercenaries. A giant insectoid noble clicked its mandibles beside him, its forearms crossed as if it had already decided it would win the prize. Behind Jaren, a cloaked reptilian muttered into a communicator, its forked tongue hissing. Everyone smelled of power and danger, and Jaren, just a human from a small colony, felt like prey among predators. A bell rang. The hall fell silent. The auctioneer, tall and thin with metallic skin that gleamed under the light, stepped forward. His voice carried like thunder. "Esteemed guests, you have traveled far. Tonight, you shall see the object that will change the balance of your worlds. The object you have dreamed of owning." Jaren squinted, trying to guess what kind of machine or crystal would be wheeled out. But when the heavy iron doors opened, no machine came. Two armored guards marched forward, their helmets glowing orange, and between them was a girl. Gasps broke the silence. She was unlike anything Jaren had ever seen. Young, breathtaking, and fierce, her emerald skin shimmered in the dim light. Her long black hair tumbled over her shoulders, and chains bound her wrists, though she carried herself with a pride that no chains could crush. Her sharp golden eyes glared at the crowd, not with fear, but with defiance. "This," the auctioneer said with a flourish, "is the object." The hall erupted. Voices shouted. Some in shock, others already shouting bids. Jaren's throat tightened. She wasn't an object. She was alive. A very beautiful, very young, very dangerous alien girl, and every warlord in the galaxy wanted her. "What is she?" whispered someone near him. "Royal blood," another voice hissed. "She must be." Jaren's mind spun. He hadn't come for this. He had come expecting broken tech, scraps to sell, not a living being paraded like treasure. His instinct told him to leave, but his feet refused to move. His eyes locked with hers for one impossible moment. In them, he saw a silent plea, not for mercy, but for defiance. The bidding began. Numbers were shouted in alien currencies. Gold, weapons, entire fleets offered. The insectoid noble beside Jaren clicked furiously, its voice shrill as it raised the bid higher and higher. The reptilian hissed louder, promising half a star system. The hall shook with greed and hunger. Jaren's heart pounded. He wasn't rich. He had no fleets, no armies, no fortunes to throw away. He should walk out and never look back. But that gaze, that fire in her eyes burned into him. Something in him whispered that if he didn't act now, he would regret it forever. He stood slowly. His hand lifted. His voice, rough but steady, rang out over the noise. "I'll bid." The hall fell silent for a heartbeat. Dozens of alien eyes turned to him, scanning him, measuring him. A human, daring to step into their game. The auctioneer smiled, metallic teeth flashing, and in that moment, Jaren realized his life had just changed. This was no ordinary bid. This was the first move in a war he never planned to start. The silence after Jaren's words felt heavier than any chain. For one long second, no one moved. Then the hall erupted. Laughter, snarls, and furious shouts crashed together like thunder. A human had dared to bid. A human with no house, no wealth, no soldiers. To the warlords, It was more than an insult, it was madness. The auctioneer's metallic face twisted into something like amusement. "A new player enters," he said, his silver voice carrying across the hall. "A human bids. Do we accept?" The crowd roared in protest. "He has nothing. Throw him out. He insults the auction." The insectoid noble beside Jaren leaned close, mandibles clacking in menace. "Leave now, flesh thing. You are beneath this." Jaren's throat went dry. His mind screamed at him to sit down, to shut up, to run. But then he saw her again, the girl standing at the center of it all. Her chains glowed faintly, holding her tight, but her eyes were locked on him. That same fire from before burned hotter now. She wasn't asking for pity. She was daring him not to back down. Jaren straightened his shoulders. "My bid stands." The auctioneer raised a long finger, silencing the hall with a sharp chime. "All bids are accepted here. If the human cannot pay, he will forfeit his life. Such is the law." A hiss of approval ran through the crowd. To them, this was sport. If the human lost, he would die. If he somehow won, he would be hunted the moment he stepped outside. Either way, the night had just become more entertaining. The bidding surged again. The reptilian warlord offered 2 fleets of ships. The insectoid noble raised with 3 mountains of gold. Voices overlapped, growing louder and louder. Jaren's stomach knotted tighter. He had nothing to match them. Nothing but his voice, his courage, and the fact that no one thought he belonged here. The girl's eyes flickered. She tilted her head, almost imperceptibly, as if signaling him. His pulse raced. Was she trying to tell him something? Then the auctioneer's voice cut through again. "The human bidder. How do you answer?" Jaren's heart slammed in his chest. He had no fortunes, no armies. But he had survived years on the edges of war zones, scavenging from wrecks, slipping out of impossible traps. He knew one truth. Confidence could be worth more than gold. He took a deep breath. "I offer something none of you can," he said, his voice firm. The hall quieted, curious despite themselves. "I offer freedom. No chains, no ownership. I don't bid for her as an object. I claim her as a person." The silence this time was colder, sharper. The warlords hissed and growled. Chains rattled as guards tightened their grips. The auctioneer tilted his head, his metallic smile fading into a strange stillness. "You dare challenge the nature of the auction itself?" The auctioneer said softly, "I do," Jaren answered. His voice almost shook, but he forced it steady. "And if your law says I forfeit my life for failing, then so be it. But she isn't yours to sell." The hall exploded in rage. Shouts, curses, the stomping of armored feet shook the walls. The insectoid noble lunged forward, but guards blocked the path. Laughing as the chaos grew, and through it all, the girl stood straighter. Her golden eyes widened just slightly, not with fear, but with something close to surprise. Her lips moved, a whisper no one else could hear. Jaren didn't know the words, but somehow he felt the meaning. "You fool. And yet, you may be the only one." The auctioneer raised both hands, summoning silence again. His voice, when it came, was colder than iron. "Very well. The human's bid is accepted not of wealth, but of defiance. The law is clear. He will pay in blood if he fails. Let the record show the human now holds the claim." Gasps echoed. Some laughed at the absurdity. Others snarled with fury. But the rule had been spoken. For now, the girl's fate was tied to his. Guard stepped forward, releasing her chains with a hiss of energy. She staggered for a moment, then lifted her chin high, her eyes never leaving Jaren. "You've just made enemies of half this hall." The insectoid noble growled at him, venom dripping from its mandibles. "Pray you do not leave this place alive." Jaren swallowed hard. He hadn't expected to win anything. Yet here she was walking toward him, free of her chains, But walking into a storm of danger, the girl stopped in front of him. Her voice, low and sharp, cut through the noise. "You are either the bravest fool I have ever seen, or the last hope I didn't believe in." Jaren forced a crooked smile, though his hands trembled. Maybe both. And as the crowd seethed around them, Jaren realized this wasn't just a bit anymore. This was war, and it had only just begun. The auction hall emptied slowly, but the threats hung in the air long after the crowd dispersed. Jaren stood stiff, every nerve tight, as the girl walked beside him, her chains gone but her presence as commanding as ever. Dozens of eyes followed them, alien nobles, mercenaries, assassins, none of them hiding their hatred. The insectoid noble spat one last curse before vanishing into the shadows, and the reptilian warlord hissed a promise that their paths would cross again. Jaren forced his legs to move, though each step felt heavier. He had expected to slip out of the auction, maybe grab a drink, maybe laugh about the madness he'd witnessed. Instead, he had somehow bound himself to the most dangerous figure in the room at his side. The girl glanced at him, her golden eyes sharp. "You just painted a target on your back," she said quietly, her voice low and melodic, almost like a warning. "Every house here will want you dead." He gave a tired grin, though his stomach churned. "Yeah, I noticed." She studied him for a moment longer, then looked away, her jaw tightening. "Why did you do it?" Jaren didn't answer at first. He thought of walking away, thought of shrugging it off. But her gaze demanded honesty. Finally he said, "Because no one else would. They saw you as a prize. I saw you as someone who didn't deserve to be chained." For the first time, her eyes softened, just slightly. "Foolish," she whispered, "but rare." They reached the outside of the auction hall. The night was thick with neon light and alien mist. Streets stretched out like veins, packed with hovering transports and strange markets. But the danger was closer than the city around them. Jaren could already feel its shadows moving, figures slipping from corners. The warlords hadn't waited long. The girl stopped suddenly, pulling him into a narrow alley. Her hands, though delicate, were strong as iron. She pressed him against the wall, eyes burning. "Listen to me," she said. "You don't understand what you've done. I am not just anyone. My bloodline. It is the reason they sold me. If you keep me, if you protect me, the whole galaxy will hunt you." Her words struck like a hammer. Jaren swallowed hard. "Then why didn't you say that in there?" Her lips curled into something between a smile and a snarl. "Would you have walked away if I had?" He didn't answer. He couldn't. Before either could speak again, the first attack came. A bolt of plasma screamed past Jaren's head, scorching the wall. He ducked instinctively, pulling the girl down with him. Figures appeared at the mouth of the alley, 3 mercenaries in heavy armor, weapons glowing. Their eyes burned with the promise of reward. "Hand her over, human," one barked. "And we'll let you die quick." Jaren's mind raced. He had no blaster, no army, no chance. Yet running wasn't an option. He glanced at the girl. To his shock, she wasn't afraid. Her eyes gleamed brighter, and she whispered words he didn't understand. The air around her seemed to shimmer, the mist bending toward her like it obeyed her will. The mercenaries hesitated, just for a breath. Jaren saw it, their fear. Whatever she was, they knew. And they didn't like it. She stood, stepping forward slowly, and the mist thickened, coiling around her like smoke alive. "Leave," she said, her voice low but commanding, "or you will regret it." The mercenaries hesitated. One spat, firing again. But the bolt never touched her. The mist swallowed it, dissolving it in a hiss of light. Their faces turned pale. Jaren's jaw dropped. He had expected her to be strong, but this was something far beyond human understanding. The mercenaries backed away, muttering curses before vanishing into the night. Silence fell heavy again. Jaren looked at her with wide eyes. "What are you?" he asked softly. She turned, her face unreadable, though her golden eyes glowed like embers. "The reason your life will never be the same," she said. "And the reason they will never stop coming." Jaren leaned against the wall, his heart pounding. He realized then that this wasn't about a bid anymore. This was about survival. Protecting her wasn't just reckless. It was war against every power in the galaxy. And he had just chosen his side. The city never slept. Above the towers of metal and glass, lights blinked like stars that had fallen too low. Jaren moved fast through the crowded night streets, his hood pulled low and his heart beating like a drum. Behind him, the alien girl followed silently, her steps light and graceful despite the chaos around them. The noise of the crowd machines humming, traders shouting, and the buzz of neon helped hide them. But Jaren knew it wouldn't last. The warlords wouldn't forgive what he had done. He glanced over his shoulder. "You sure they won't track us here?" The girl shook her head. "They will. They have eyes everywhere." Her voice was calm, but her golden eyes scanned every alley and rooftop. "We must keep moving until we reach the low sectors. No one asks questions there." Jaren frowned. "You sound like you've done this before." "I've been hunted my whole life," she said softly. They turned down a narrow passage lit only by the flicker of a dying sign. The air smelled of metal and rain. The noise faded behind them, leaving only the sound of their footsteps. For the first time since the auction, Jaren had a moment to breathe. He looked at her properly. Her skin glowed faintly in the dim light, smooth and luminous like polished stone. Her dark hair fell over her shoulders, tangled but elegant. She didn't look like a prisoner anymore. She looked like someone who had survived too many battles to count. "You never told me your name," he said quietly. She hesitated, then answered, "Lyra." "Lyra," he repeated, testing the name like it was something rare. "So Lyra, any idea who exactly wants you dead?" She looked away, her jaw tightening. "Everyone with power. My father was ruler of the Dominion of Vesheris. When he died, they decided a daughter was too weak to lead. They tore my name from the records, sold me as property, and planned to erase the bloodline forever." Jaren stopped walking. "They sold you to hide you?" Her gaze met his. "They sold me to kill me quietly. Whoever bought me was supposed to make sure I never spoke again. You changed that plan." Jaren rubbed a hand over his face. "Great, so I didn't just buy trouble. I bought a revolution." Lyra's lips curved into the faintest smile. "You didn't buy anything. You chose." Before Jaren could reply, a shadow moved ahead too fast. His instincts screamed. He grabbed Lyra and pulled her behind a rusted metal container, just as energy bolts tore through the air, lighting the alley blue. Dozens of armored shapes appeared on the rooftops. Drones buzzed overhead, red lights flashing. A distorted voice echoed from a speaker. "Human, surrender the royal asset. Resistance will result in immediate termination." "Royal asset?" Jaren muttered. "That's what they call people now?" Lyra's eyes glowed brighter. "They won't stop. The warlords already know who I am. If we fall into their hands again, it's over." "Then we don't let them," Jaren said. He reached for a loose pipe near his feet and yanked it free. It wasn't a weapon, just a piece of junk. But he'd fought with worse. The first drone swooped low, its cannon charging. Jaren swung the pipe with all his strength. The metal struck hard, sparks flying as the drone shattered to pieces. The explosion sent smoke through the alley, and Lyra moved fast, her hands rising as light rippled from her fingertips. For a moment, the air shimmered, and the attacker's sensors glitched. Alarms screeched. The drones turned in confusion, firing at walls and shadows. Jaren stared, amazed. You can do that? I can do more, Lyra said. But it takes energy. And control. Then save it for when we really need it, he said, grabbing her hand. Come on. They sprinted through the maze of back alleys, dodging beams of light, jumping over broken rails. The city blurred around them, flashing colors, strange faces, smoke, noise. Behind them, explosions boomed as their pursuers tore through everything in their path. Finally, they stumbled into an old freight tunnel, half flooded and dark. Jaren leaned against a wall, gasping for breath. You all right? Lyra nodded, though her skin glowed faintly dimmer now, like a fading star. I'll recover. My strength returned slowly. He sank beside her, trying to calm his heartbeat. The silence felt strange after all the chaos. Somewhere above them, the city roared on, unaware that a human and a fallen alien princess were hiding beneath its feet. Lyra turned her head slightly, her voice softer now. You could still leave me. They would stop chasing you. Jaren shook his head. Too late. You're my problem now. For the first time, Lyra smiled, not a cold, cautious smile, but something real, almost human. Then maybe, she said quietly, you are the first human who ever made me believe in them. Jaren looked at her and couldn't tell if it was bravery or stupidity that had led him this far. Maybe both. But one thing was clear, this was no longer just survival. Somewhere in the dark, something bigger had begun to unfold, and the galaxy was about to notice. Jaren woke to the sound of dripping water and faint hums of machinery above the tunnel. The air was cold and damp, carrying the metallic taste of rust. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then he saw Lyra sitting nearby, her back against the tunnel wall, her golden eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. She hadn't slept. Instead, she was tracing strange symbols on the ground with her finger, symbols that glowed faintly before fading. What are you doing? He asked, his voice rough from exhaustion. Wards, she replied quietly. They'll hide us from scanners for a little while longer. Jaren sat up, stretching his sore limbs. You never told me how you can do all that light, mist, whatever it was. You're not just royal, are you? Lyra didn't answer immediately. Her hand paused mid-air, and for a few seconds, she seemed far away, lost in some memory she'd tried to bury. Finally, she looked at him. My people call it the blood of the core. It runs only in the ruling line. It connects us to the old energy that built our world thousands of years ago. We were meant to protect it. But power breeds envy. Jaren leaned forward. So the warlords, they overthrew your family? They betrayed us, Lyra said softly. My father ruled with peace, but the others wanted dominance. When he died, they struck. I was young. They called me a child, too weak to rule. So they erased me. They thought if I disappeared, the power of the core would fade with me. But it didn't, Jaren said. She met his eyes. No, it grew stronger. Jaren exhaled slowly. So that's why they want you dead. You're not just a princess. You're the key to something they can't control. Lyra nodded. If I die, the energy of my world collapses and their war fleets lose power. They can't let me live. And now that you helped me escape, you carry that same mark of defiance. They will chase you until the stars burn out. Jaren ran a hand through his hair. You could have mentioned that before I raised my hand. She tilted her head, a hint of dry humor touching her lips. Would it have stopped you? He thought about it. No, but it might have made me run faster. For the first time in what felt like forever, she laughed, a soft, brief sound that disappeared into the echoes of the tunnel. It wasn't the laugh of a queen. It was the laugh of someone who had forgotten what safety felt like, but the moment didn't last. From above, they both heard the dull rumble of engines. Lyra's expression darkened. They found us. Jaren stood, checking the shadows of the tunnel. How? You said your wards. They slow them. They don't stop them. The rumbling grew louder. Dust fell from the ceiling. Lights flickered on the far side of the tunnel as a squad of armored figures descended the ramps, weapons raised. Jaren's pulse spiked. There were too many to fight. Lyra rose, calm but focused. "Run toward the lower tunnels," she said. "I'll hold them." Jaren grabbed her arm. "Are you insane? You can't take all of them." She looked at him, her gaze fierce. "I have to. If they catch me, you die too." "Go," but Jaren didn't move. "I'm not leaving you again." The soldiers began firing. Blinding beams of energy cut through the tunnel walls, sending debris flying. Lyra raised both hands, and a wave of golden light rippled outward, bending the air itself. The bolts froze mid-flight, hanging like suspended glass before disintegrating into sparks. Jaren stared in awe. "How are you doing that?" Her voice trembled slightly, though her face stayed calm. "Because I'm what they fear most, a queen who can't be broken." The air shook as she released another surge, throwing the attackers backward. The walls cracked, sending streams of water down. Jaren rushed forward, grabbing her before she collapsed. Her skin was cold, her glow flickering like a dying flame. "Enough," he said. "You'll kill yourself." Lyra's breathing was unsteady. "The core calls me when I use its power. It's not meant for this long." He pulled her close, holding her upright. "Then save it. We'll find another way." Her head rested against his shoulder, her voice barely a whisper. "You still don't understand. If I don't reach the core soon, it will consume me. That's why they want me dead. Because if I survive and awaken it, their empires fall." Jaren looked down the tunnel where the last of the soldiers retreated, frightened by the power they'd just witnessed. He realized the truth wasn't just about Lyra anymore. The warlords had built their reign on lies, and the girl he'd saved was the spark that could destroy all of it. And for the first time in his life, Jaren didn't feel like a drifter or a scavenger. He felt like someone standing at the edge of history. He tightened his grip on her arm. "Then we find the core," he said. "Before they do." Lyra looked up, her golden eyes glowing brighter again, as if hope had returned to her. "Then we fight together." In the silence that followed, the hum of machines faded into the distance. They didn't know what waited ahead, but one thing was clear: the war for the galaxy had already begun. And it started with them. The night before dawn was silent. But the silence felt heavy, like the galaxy itself was holding its breath. Deep beneath the ruined city, Jaren and Lyra reached the entrance to the old vault. It was hidden beneath layers of metal and rock, a forgotten chamber left from an age before war. The door shimmered faintly with strange golden patterns that pulsed as Lyra stepped closer. "This is it," she whispered. "The core sleeps beyond this wall." Jaren looked around the dark tunnel. The air smelled of ozone and the ground trembled softly. He could feel the weight of what they were about to do. "And when you wake it?" he asked quietly. Lyra's eyes met his. "Then everything changes. Their fleets lose power, their weapons fail." "But," she hesitated, "the core was never meant to be touched by one alone. It could burn me from within." He frowned. "There's got to be another way." "There isn't," she said softly. "That's the price of blood." Before Jaren could argue, a low rumble shook the ground. Dust fell from the ceiling. Then came the echo of engines, the deep growl of ships descending. Lyra turned, her expression hardening. "They're here." Through the cracks in the upper tunnels, blinding light spilled in as enemy dropships broke through the night sky. Armored soldiers poured out, their weapons gleaming. And at the front of them all, towering in black armor trimmed with crimson light, stood the warlord himself, the one who had ordered Lyra's sail. His voice carried like thunder. "You run far, little heir," he sneered. "But you cannot hide from destiny. Hand over the girl, human, and I might let you live long enough to regret this." Jaren stood in front of Lyra, gripping a broken weapon he'd scavenged from the tunnels. "You'll have to go through me." The warlord laughed, a sound that echoed through the cavern. A human defending a fallen queen? Pathetic. Lyra stepped forward beside Jaren, her voice calm but full of power. "You fear what I carry, not me." The warlord raised his weapon. "You carry a curse." The air vibrated as the soldiers raised their rifles. The first shots fired, lighting the cavern in blue flashes. Jaren pulled Lyra down behind a stone pillar, the blast striking close enough to make his ears ring. He fired back, but his shots barely slowed them. There were too many. Lyra's hand trembled, golden light gathering around her fingers. "If I release the core's energy now," she said, "it will destroy everything, including us." "Then don't," Jaren said. "You'll die." She looked at him with a faint smile, sadness in her eyes. "You don't understand. I was never meant to survive this. My purpose was to awaken what my father protected." Jaren shook his head. "No, you're not just a purpose. You're alive. You're worth saving." The light around her grew stronger, spreading across her arms like liquid fire. "You gave me freedom, Jaren. No one else ever did. Let me return it." Before he could stop her, she rose, stepping into the open. Golden light burst from her body, so bright that even the enemy hesitated. The ground shook, the walls cracked, and the vault door behind her began to glow. The symbols burning brighter than stars. The warlord shouted in fury, charging forward, but his weapon dissolved midair, melting like sand in sunlight. The soldiers screamed as their armor shut down, their machines failing one by one. Jaren shielded his eyes. "Lyra!" Her voice echoed through the light, calm and powerful. "This world does not belong to tyrants anymore." The core awakened. A wave of pure energy rushed through the tunnels, sweeping across the battlefield, the city, and far beyond. The lights of the enemy ships flickered, engines dying as the sky turned golden. The warlord fell to his knees, his armor cracking apart. And in that moment, Jaren felt the universe shift. The impossible had happened. When the light faded, the soldiers were gone. The warlord lay silent, his armor smoking. The vault stood open, its glow fading into stillness. Jaren stumbled forward, heart pounding. "Lyra?" He found her lying near the entrance, her skin pale, her glow gone. He knelt beside her, his hands shaking. "Hey, come on, you did it. You won." Her eyes fluttered open, weak but peaceful. "We won," she whispered. "The galaxy is free again. At least for now." He tried to smile through the ache in his chest. "You said the core would burn you. But maybe it didn't." She reached up, touching his face with trembling fingers. "No flame lasts forever, but it can light another." Jaren held her as the first rays of morning light filtered through the broken ceiling. The war was over. The chains were gone. And though she was fading, her warmth remained in his arms, a quiet promise that her sacrifice had not been in vain. When the sun finally rose, Jaren stood alone beside the vault. The world above was waking to a new dawn. The warlords had fallen, and the people were free. He looked toward the sky, whispering softly, "Rest now. Lyra, they'll remember you." And somewhere in the golden light of the morning, it felt like she smiled.